So imagine this. You have a 23-year-old actor, right? And he's on the set of literally India's biggest cinematic epic.
Right, a massive production.
Massive. But he's not, sitting in his trailer worrying about his lines or finding his light.
As you'd normally expect.
Exactly. Instead, he is standing in a boardroom, pulling up Chinese box office data and presenting this meticulously researched pitch for a massive international corporate acquisition.
It really is wild when you think about it.
It is. And welcome, by the way, to today's deep dive. We have a really fascinating stack of sources today.
We do. We're looking at production notes, diaries, and historical accounts from the making of the cultural phenomenon Bahubali.
Yeah, and we are specifically unpacking Chapter 16 of these accounts, which is aptly titled The Pursuit of Perfection.
Such a great title for this.
Right. And our mission today for you, the listener, is to explore this really profound tension. We are looking at this lead actor named Anant.
Who is, again, only 23 at this point.
Just 23. And he operates with the, ruthless strategic brilliance of a seasoned Fortune 500 executive.
Yeah, totally analytical.
But then ultimately, he has to confront the absolute limits of his own intellect to access genuine spiritual and artistic depth.
It is such a remarkable trajectory to analyze, honestly, because we so often compartmentalize the human experience,
Oh, for sure.
We expect someone to either be the analytical, data-driven strategist or the vulnerable, emotional artist.
Right, you're either the suit or the creative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Anand's journey just completely shatters that binary. I mean, he builds this monumental cinematic project using cold, calculated logic.
Yeah.
He's mapping out global markets and military history only to reach this critical juncture where all of that strategic scaffolding just isn't enough.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to truly appreciate the breakdown of his analytical mind later on, we have to establish just how sharp his business acumen is at the start.
Right, we have to set the baseline.
Yeah, so we are 8 months into this massive production. The director, S.S. Rajamouli, is already trying to manage this sprawling epic.
Stretched completely thin, I'm sure.
No, absolutely. And then Anant calls an urgent meeting and presents this incredibly unorthodox proposal regarding the battle choreography.
Yeah, so Anant proposes hiring Jackie Chan's Hong Kong stunt team for the major battle sequences.
Which is a huge swing.
Huge. And he asked for an allocation of 15 crores, which, for context, is 150 million rupees, or roughly a couple million US dollars.
Wow. Okay.
Now, you have to look at this from the director's perspective. The production already employs these phenomenal action choreographers who specialize in Kalari.
Right, which is an ancient, highly revered Indian martial art.
Exactly. So the initial reaction to bringing a Hong Kong stunt team onto a deeply traditional Indian epic is, well, it's intense skepticism.
Understandably so.
Yeah. The concern is that traditional artists are basically being replaced just for the sake of flashy international stunts.
So the obvious question here is, why disrupt the production? Why is a 23-year-old actor lobbying so hard for foreign stunt coordinators?
Because Anand isn't actually looking at this as a choreographic replacement. He is pitching a calculated international market acquisition.
Okay, interesting.
He presents the director with data on the Chinese box office, which at the time was a massive 70-plus billion yuan market.
That's a staggering amount of money.
It is. And historically, Indian cinema had really struggled to gain a significant mainstream foothold in that specific market.
Right, it's tough to cross over.
But Anand's research indicated that Chinese audiences possess this strong cultural patriotism regarding their domestic talent.
Oh, so they enthusiastically support global films that employ and respect Chinese artists.
Exactly. So by bringing Jackie Chan's legendary team on board, Anant basically guarantees coverage in Chinese media. He is essentially buying organic audience curiosity in the world's second-largest film market.
So what does this all mean for the film? It's basically like a tech company acquiring a foreign startup, right?
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, they aren't trying to replace their core engineers back at headquarters. They are just buying instant credibility and a massive pre-existing user base in a completely new territory.
Spot on.
But, the crucial part of any corporate merger is the integration. You have to ensure the new software actually works with your existing operating system, or you risk crashing the whole network.
And the artistic justification he uses to sell this integration to the director is really where the strategy becomes brilliant.
How so?
Well, the director's primary fear is a tonal clash. Hong Kong cinema is very famous for wire work.
Right. Actors flying through the air defying gravity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Indian Kalari combat is intensely grounded. It's heavy and rooted in the earth.
Right?
So to solve this, Anant presents historical research tracing the interconnected lineage of both martial arts.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he demonstrates that both Kalari and Chinese Kung Fu share an ancestral root tracing back to Lord Bodhidharma, the ancient monk who traveled from India to China.
That is, I mean, he uses an ancient historical lineage to justify a modern business merger. That's wild.
It is. And he backs up the history with biomechanical evidence too. He presents comparison videos showing that Jackie Chan's specific team actually specializes in highly practical, physical, environmental stunts with very minimal wire work.
Ah.
So their methodology perfectly complements the grounded realism of Kalari. The result on screen is a combat style that feels viscerally Indian, yet structurally readable to a global audience.
That's so smart.
And financially speaking, that 15 crore request represented less than 2% of the film's total budget.
Wow.
So for a fraction of the cost, he architected this brilliant bridge to the Asian market.
But here is the catch with buying international attention, right? If a massive new audience is scrutinizing these battle scenes, the underlying mechanics of the combat have to actually make logical sense.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, flashy stunts are not enough if the warfare feels chaotic or weightless, which pushed Anant to take a pretty drastic step regarding how the battles were conceived in the first place.
Right, so while the international stunt team generated all this external media buzz, Anand was quietly engineering an internal layer of authenticity.
Okay.
He recognized that the stunt team could, execute the physical strikes, but someone needed to dictate the macro-level movement of the armies.
The actual strategy.
Yeah. So he hired 3 distinct military historians to consult on the film.
Okay, let's lay out the scoop of this because I want to push back on this concept just a little bit.
Sure, kind of.
So he brings in Dr. Rajan Menon, an expert in Krola naval and infantry tactics. He hires Dr. Rajveer Singh, who specializes in Rajput cavalry and siege warfare.
Right.
And then he brings in Professor Vasant Shinde, an authority on Maratha guerrilla strategies. Now, wait a second. I am trying to wrap my head around this.
It sounds like overkill.
It does. This is a mythological fantasy film. The kingdom is totally fictional. Why on earth do you need a historian specializing in actual Chola infantry formations for a made-up battlefield? Isn't the audience just buying a ticket for the cinematic spectacle?
This raises an important question about the architecture of fantasy, honestly. Like, why put rigorous historical guardrails on a world that doesn't actually exist?
Exactly.
Well, Anand's philosophy was that human beings possess a subconscious radar for logic, even when they're watching a fantasy.
Interesting.
If you just have 2 massive armies running at each other in a flat field, swinging swords indiscriminately, it just becomes visual noise. There are no stakes because there is no structure.
Oh, I see. The audience checks out because the action feels weightless and arbitrary.
Precisely. But when you apply actual historical military doctrine, the dynamic changes completely.
How so?
By utilizing the Maratha guerrilla tactics, they designed sequences where the fictional army uses the physical terrain to set traps and funnel enemies.
Okay, that makes sense.
And by implementing Rajput cavalry concepts, you see believable flanking maneuvers. By using Chola infantry strategies, you establish realistic supply lines and shield walls. Suddenly, the warfare has a tangible intellectual foundation. Anand insisted that to convincingly portray a military commander, he couldn't just stand in front of a green screen and look brave.
Right.
He had to genuinely understand the supply chain logistics and the spatial geometry of the battlefield he was supposedly commanding.
Synthesizing those specific historical tactics, the Chola, the Rajput, the Maratha, it didn't just organize the screen, it created a distinctly Indian approach to epic warfare.
That's a really great point.
Yeah, they weren't just defaulting to the visual language of Hollywood blockbusters or European medieval battles. They were utilizing their own rich strategic history to ground the fantasy.
Exactly.
And this obsession with grounding the strategy in physical reality naturally bled into how they handled the visual effects, too.
It did. So about 10 months into the production schedule, the sheer scale of the movie began to fracture the local infrastructure.
The cracks started showing.
Yeah, the script demanded highly complex character aging, elaborate battle damage, and these really intricate prosthetics. And the local makeup capabilities were simply maxed out.
So the local infrastructure is failing, and the production is basically staring down a massive bottleneck. What is Anant's solution to this?
He approaches the director with another acquisition pitch, but this one carries a profound emotional weight.
Okay.
He proposes hiring a displaced Hollywood practical effects team, specifically a team led by an industry veteran named Susan Henriksen.
Oh, right. She had worked alongside the legendary practical effects master, Rick Baker, right?
Yes, exactly. And to understand the significance of this move, we really have to look at the macroeconomic context of the film industry at that specific time.
This was during the massive industry-wide gold rush towards CGI, correct?
Yes, studios were realizing that digital effects could often be rendered cheaper and faster than building physical prosthetics.
Mm.
And this shift was actively decimating the traditional makeup artistry field. Legendary practical effects artists, gorgeous, people who had won Oscars for defining the visual aesthetic of the 80s and 90s were suddenly finding themselves categorized as obsolete.
That's so sad.
It was. They were struggling to maintain studios and find consistent work because executives just believed computers could simply paint over everything.
And Ant's argument against relying purely on that digital Maya VFX software is fascinating. He argued that digital technology should act as a complement to artistry, not a replacement for it.
A crucial distinction.
Yeah, he firmly believed that tangible physical prosthetics give the actors real weighted objects to interact with, rather than asking them to generate authentic emotion while staring at, like, a tennis ball on a stick.
And from a purely technical standpoint, he was absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Tangible prosthetics create a physical foundation. They interact with the actual lighting on set. The digital artists subsequently have a much easier time when they are enhancing a physical reality that already exists in the camera lens, rather than trying to manifest weight and texture out of thin air.
It's like the difference between relying purely on an AI program to generate a piece of music from scratch versus recording a master musician playing a real instrument in a studio, capturing all that human imperfection and emotion, and then using the computer software to mix and master the final track.
That is a perfect way to put it.
You have to start with a human soul.
That analogy captures the dynamic perfectly. And Anant didn't just view this as a technical solution, he viewed it as an act of preservation.
Oh, wow.
When he met with Susan Henriksen's team in Hyderabad, he spoke to them with immense reverence. The source text notes a deeply moving moment where Susan Henriksen, who, remember, had contributed to multiple Oscar-nominated films but had recently faced years of industry mockery in this new CGI era, she actually tears up during the meeting.
Oh.
Yeah. Anant looked at these veteran artists who had been discarded by their own industry and explicitly told them they were essential.
That is incredible. He is managing this level of emotional intelligence and macro-level industry strategy while simultaneously working, 18-hour days?
Yeah, at least.
The production diaries note him waking up at 4:30 a.m. for rigorous physical training, learning ancient languages, and practicing those grounded martial arts we talked about earlier. The sheer, grueling physical and mental discipline is almost hard to fathom.
It was so intense that the director, Rajamouli, and his father, the screenwriter K.V. Vijayanathan Prasad, realized that this discipline was actually a cultural artifact in its own right.
Like it needed to be documented.
Exactly. They noticed how Anant's relentless, quiet work ethic was elevating the standard of the entire crew. So they made a strategic decision of their own.
What did they do?
They began quietly compiling all the behind-the-scenes footage of Anant's training, historical research, and physical punishment into a 90-minute documentary feature.
Oh, right, titled Anant, The Making of Bahubali, which is a brilliant piece of media. But the marketing strategy behind its release is what really stands out to me. They made the highly unusual decision to release this massive documentary 2 weeks before the actual theatrical trailer for the film was released to the public.
It seems so counterintuitive at first glance.
Totally.
Because standard industry practice is to tease the flashy, high-octane spectacle, first to grab attention, and then relegate the behind-the-scenes footage to the DVD extras for the hardcore fans later on.
Exactly. You want to show the explosions before you show the spreadsheets.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, though, Rajamouli understood something fundamental about human psychology and audience investment.
Which was?
By selling the unvarnished discipline first, by forcing the audience to witness the 4:30 a.m. wake-ups, the bruised knuckles, the exhausting historical study, he built a profound emotional architecture in the mind of the viewer.
Oh, I love that phrase, emotional architecture.
Yeah, so by the time the massive visual spectacle of the official trailer actually dropped, the audience wasn't just consuming computer-generated imagery. They already possessed a deep, inherent respect for the sheer human toll required to construct every single frame.
You are deeply invested in the human being, long before you are asked to invest in the fictional character.
Exactly.
But, this brings us to the pivot point of today's deep dive. We have just spent the entire first half of this discussion watching a Nat master business strategy, international market dynamics, military history, and intense physical conditioning.
He's a machine.
He has built an impenetrable analytical armor. But right at the finish line, with 95% of the production completed, he hits a psychological barrier that no amount of logic, capital, or historical research can overcome.
The crisis of devotion.
Yeah. The final sequence left on the production schedule is the Shiva tribute dance. And this isn't just another scene, it is the spiritual and emotional epicenter of the entire narrative.
The climax, basically.
Anant has spent months painstakingly mastering the choreography, which is this highly complex fusion of Bharatanatyam and Kathak classical dance styles. From a purely biomechanical standpoint, he is executing the geometry flawlessly.
Right, he's got the moves down.
But 3 days before the cameras are scheduled to roll, he goes to the director and admits he is completely paralyzed.
It is a moment of total vulnerability. He confesses that the performance feels utterly hollow.
Yeah.
His muscles know the steps, but his heart feels absolutely zero spiritual connection to the material. He tells Rajamouli, it is a performance, not a prayer.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because I want you, the listener, to think about the nature of faith for a second. How do you manufacture genuine spiritual devotion?
That's a great question.
If you are an actor who does not possess a burning, personal, religious ecstasy in your daily life, how do you just flip a switch and radiate divine love for a camera lens? You cannot strategize your way into a spiritual awakening. You can't hire a historian to feel it for you.
No, you really can't. The intellect has finally reached its boundary here.
Yeah.
Anant recognizes that his usual tools, logic, and effort are totally useless here.
Right.
So he takes urgent, humble action. He pauses his schedule and flies to Mumbai specifically to seek the guidance of Mohit Raina.
And for some cultural context here, Mohit Raina is an actor who achieved massive fame for portraying Lord Shiva in a deeply beloved television series.
Right. If there's anyone alive who understands the mechanics of channeling divine energy on camera without it feeling artificial, it is Mohit.
So Anant arrives at his apartment, literally stripping away all of his status as the lead of this massive cinematic epic, and basically begs for the psychological secret.
Yeah.
And the advice Mohit gives him completely reorients Anant's understanding of his own craft.
It really does. Mohit explains that portraying divinity is not an act of addition, it is an act of subtraction.
Wow. Subtraction.
Yeah, it isn't about layering on a performance. It is about getting your own ego out of the way. Mohit tells him that if he looks at the sprawling, complex mythology of Shiva, the cosmic destruction, the creation of the universe, the intense asceticism, it is too vast for the human mind to grasp.
Right, it becomes intimidating.
Exactly. So Mohit advises that if Anant cannot connect with the abstract concept of a cosmic deity, he must connect with the human elements underlying the mythology.
He tells him to find the anchor in the mundane. Connect with Shiva as a father, a husband, a loyal companion.
Because the core of all those roles is genuine, unconditional love. Unconditional love is the human gateway to divine devotion.
I love that.
You find the deeply recognizable human element within the deity, and suddenly the intimidating cosmic figure becomes emotionally accessible.
It is a beautiful, elegant philosophical concept. But understanding a philosophy intellectually is a very different mechanism than feeling it manifest physically in your body.
That's the hardest part.
And that is where Mohit's wife, Adidan, intervenes. She recognizes that Anand is still trying to analyze his way out of the problem.
Still using that boardroom brain.
Exactly. So she suggests they skip the philosophical discussion and move directly to a physical experience.
She initiates a visualization meditation right there in their home. And this is where the critical transformation occurs.
Break down what happens here.
Mohit guides Anant to close his eyes and visualize Mount Kailash, the mythological home of Shiva. But he explicitly instructs Anant not to picture an untouchable, judgmental God.
Okay.
Instead, he tells him to visualize a living presence that radiates absolute peace and absolute safety. He instructs Anant to approach this presence with zero demands, zero strategic goals, and zero expectations of a reward. Just pure, unadulterated devotion.
Once Anant reaches that deeply calm, meditative state, Mohit tells him to stand up in the middle of the living room, keep his eyes completely closed, and begin the choreography.
And the resulting shift is profoundly physiological. Let's explain the mechanism of what happens here.
Yeah, please do.
So Varadana team dance requires intense mathematical geometry in its posing. Kathak dance involves rapid, continuous, dizzying spins. When Anant was relying on his intellect, his conscious brain was trying to dictate every single micro-movement.
Which leads to a stiff, anxious performance.
Right. But in this state of pure visualization, when the ego and the performance anxiety are stripped away, the conscious brain steps back. His motor cortex is finally allowed to rely purely on the thousands of hours of ingrained muscle memory.
The physical friction just vanishes.
Completely vanishes. The strict geometry and the rapid spinning suddenly melt into an ecstatic expression of joy. It ceases to be choreography. Every hand gesture, every step suddenly carries authentic spiritual weight.
Wow.
He finishes the dance by collapsing into a full physical prostration on the living room floor, openly weeping. The emotional release is so powerful that Mohit and Aditi are moved to tears just witnessing it.
Because he finally bridged the gap between the mind and the soul. Which brings us back to the production set in Hyderabad for the day of the shoot.
The stakes are incredibly high now.
Oh, the atmosphere is incredibly tense. The set is dressed to resemble an ancient temple. They have constructed the massive Shiva linga, the towering abstract stone symbol of the deity. The air is thick with burning incense to create a specific atmospheric haze.
Right.
And the financial pressure of the entire production is bearing down on this one sequence. And Anant walks onto the set and quietly asks for 20 minutes of total silence.
He sits down in the lotus position directly in front of the massive stone deity and meditates. The crew stands back and watches him. And the production diaries note that everyone immediately recognized a fundamental shift in his physical presence.
Yeah.
The analytical strategist who was negotiating Chinese box office returns was gone.
The director calls action in almost a whisper so as not to break the tension. And Anand delivers a legendary single-take performance.
Yeah.
No cuts. The camera captures the controlled lighting hitting the sweat flying from his hair during the rapid chakras, those continuous Kathak spins. You can hear his heavy breathing. The camera pushes in as tears stream down his face, culminating in that final, devastating prostration of complete surrender on the temple floor.
What is truly fascinating here is how Anant's journey forms a perfect, unbreakable circle.
What do you mean?
Think about the massive sequence of events we've discussed. The grueling physical conditioning, the meticulous historical research, the ruthless corporate negotiations, the preservation of the practical effects artists.
Right.
All of that intense analytical effort was required to build the perfect, flawless physical vessel. But it was absolute spiritual vulnerability, the willingness to completely let go of control that finally breathed a soul into that vessel.
That's incredibly profound.
And when Rajamouli calls cut, there is absolute silence on the soundstage. And then the entire crew, including the most hardened, cynical technical staff, erupts into applause. Many of them are openly weeping.
Because they knew they weren't just watching a highly paid actor hitting his marks for a movie. They were bearing witness to something genuinely sacred.
The director walks up to an Anant on the temple floor and simply says, "That was perfect. We are not shooting another take."
Wow.
And when someone later asked Anant what exactly changed between his paralyzed rehearsals and that final take, Anant summarized it perfectly. "I learned the difference between performing devotion and actually feeling it."
It gives you chills. It really does. So as we synthesize this deep dive for you today, I want to look at the broader implications of this pursuit of perfection.
Definitely.
We have seen that achieving something of this magnitude isn't just about grinding out long hours or memorizing data. It requires a paradoxical duality. It requires the cold, calculated, ruthless logic of a military general or a corporate executive, seamlessly fused with the warm, open, egoless heart of a mystic devotee.
It is a staggeringly rare combination. Society trains us to pick a lane, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
You are either the brilliant boardroom strategist locking down foreign markets, or you are the vulnerable artist weeping in meditation. Anant's journey proves that to achieve true mastery, you really must cultivate both.
And that leads to a really provocative thought I want to leave you with today, specifically regarding how you approach your own life and work. We so often separate the business of our daily lives from the soul of our passions.
Right.
We assume that worrying about the mundane mechanics, the spreadsheets, the coding, the logistics, the project margins, somehow corrupts the purity of our ultimate goals.
We view the mechanics as a distraction from the art.
Exactly. But what if, as Anant's journey suggests, that mindset is completely backward? What if treating the mundane business, the daily strategy, and the physical craft with absolute meticulous reverence is actually the necessary prerequisite for unlocking pure, transcendent greatness?
That is a phenomenal paradigm shift to consider.
What if your equivalent of a 15-crore boardroom pitch and a tearful prayer on a temple floor aren't opposites at all? What if strategy and soul are simply two different languages expressing the exact same devotion?
When you respect the mundane vessel enough to perfect it, you carve out a space robust enough to safely hold the divine.
The CEO and the mystic, it turns out, are staring at the exact same truth. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Chapter 16 of the source material. We hope it gave you as many aha moments as it gave us. Keep questioning the boundaries between the mechanics of your strategy and the depth of your soul, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.